Hey, what's up, fantasy football fans? This is Mitchell at FF Real Talk, and this is the next video. It's been a long time coming. It's supposed to have been out since last week. It's going to be the first set of position primers, and it's going to be starting with running backs. But before I even do that, I want to thank everybody who subscribed, who's liked the videos, who's asked questions, who's added me on Twitter at FF Real Talk, and who's just got involved. It's been a lot of fun. They say the thing you should do for a living is whatever you would do for free. Well, hopefully, maybe one day I'll get a job at this. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna, go straight into what many view as the most important fantasy position for a number of reasons, which is running backs. And in particular, the reason that generally is why it's the most important position is because it's most scarce in terms of talent from top to bottom. The truly elites is far and few in between, and then it's just a lot of just guys out there in the NFL. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the top 30 running backs, and any of these 30 should deliver at least marked quality. Some are going to be better than others. This is broken down into, what do I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4 tiers. So, this should make, obviously, and after I do this, I'm going to put the actual list in the description at the bottom of the video so you can know the exact listing. But we're obviously going to go from 1st to 30th, and we're going to start with the number one tier, which consists of these 4 players. Only 4 is in the top tier: Adrian Peterson, LeSean McCoy, Jamaal Charles, and Matt Forte. And by the way, as I go through these lists, it's not going to be stat heavy, but I do have some stats in here to support my reasonings, et cetera, and why I pick certain people to be breakout candidates within the tier. But in this one, there's no need in even discussing breakout or potential or whatever. These 4 guys give you argument for being number 1 in any standard draft. Number 1 in any given draft of any format that isn't like a 2-quarterback league or something like that. These are the consensus 4 top picks out of the the majority of drafts, and for great reason. We can start with Adrian Peterson, over 1,000 yards every season except 2011, which he had 973, and that's the year he went out with an ACL tear. I mean, this dude is beyond what anyone could have ever imagined when he came into the league. But let me scratch that. We all knew how talented he was coming out, but he's exceeded all expectations, so much so to be arguably in the class for one of the best running backs of all time, and at the end of the day, when this thing is all done, he could very well be that. So if you take Adrian Peterson with the number 1 pick, it's as safe a pick as you can get, because he's not really an injury risk of any sort. He had 1 injury, but he showed how he could come back from even the doom and gloom injury of an ACL. So he's as safe as you get, and generally he's going to be my number 1 pick. But a lot of people argue with any of the other 3 being number 1. So it's kind of a, your choice. The reason why LeSean McCoy is a good option, he led the league last year in rushing with over 1,600 yards, and he got 314 carries. So huge amount of carries. He led the league with both carries and yards. So that means the utilization is going to be there. A lot of times when a player leads with carries one year, there can be a bit of digression the next year, especially if it happens a couple of years back to back. And LeSean McCoy is getting a little bit of mileage on him, but he's still very young, got a long way to go. Plus, with Chip Kelly's offense, is going to be even more pass opportunities for him. So he becomes even more so of a PPR threat than, say, Adrian Peterson is. But no player, well, with the exception of the last player in this tier, to me, the most dangerous player in this tier is Jamaal Charles. And when I say danger, I say that for two reasons. First reason, dangerous, because he led the league along with Marshawn Lynch with 12 touchdowns last year. He got 693 reception yards. It's wide receivers and tight ends that barely get that, or a middling receiver will get that, and a tight end with a pretty decent year gets that, and 7 reception touchdowns. Same thing. Not even Victor Cruz, one of the best receivers of the league, got 7 reception touchdowns. That's just unbelievable, and most tight ends don't. So what makes running back such a dangerous position and most important for fantasy is because they score dual types of points, and they factor into dual types of threats. The good ones do. Rushing yards and receiving yards, rushing touchdowns and receiving touchdowns. That's why, and with the top of the line ones like that being so rare, that's why it's always hard to pass on those 4 guys. So with Jamaal Charles being that, anyone who takes him first makes a lot of sense, because he's the biggest dual threat among that tier. But to me, the dark horse of the tier is Matt Forte. He's the least touted of them, the least known, and the least expected of them to do something. But his reputation and I tell you what, he's been generally more healthy than those other 4, and he's in one of the most pass-happy offenses in the league. I mean, he was second in the yards last year, got 9 touchdowns, 75 catches for a running back. It's just crazy. 75 catches for a running back. His ceiling is very high, and he has a very high floor too. He doesn't bottom out bad. So I tell you, Matt Forte, if there's an argument for any one of those guys to be the top pick. And again, Matt Forte becomes, if you're in a PPR league, him along with Jamaal Charles could easily supplant Adrian Peterson and LeSean McCoy, because Matt Forte is such a dual threat. And the good thing about, in particularly AP, LeSean, and Matt Forte, is they get the goal line carries for certain. But Jamaal Charles does too. But Matt Forte, definitely another advantage for him is the goal line work, even though he's not quite as big a back as, say, an AP or McCoy. I mean, he's about McCoy's size or whatever, but it's any one of those 4, you can't go wrong. So if you got one of the first 4 picks in the draft, or if you're in the luxury position of having, like, say, the 5th, 6th, or 7th pick, and somebody between 1, 2, 3, and 4 picked a quarterback or Calvin or Jimmy Graham or something like that, do not pass on one of those 4 if you get the opportunity. That leads to the next tier. It consists of 8 players, and this is the order I see them, value-wise. Marshawn Lynch, Eddie Lacy, DeMarco Murray, Arian Foster, Doug Martin, Montee Ball, Giovani Bernard, Zac Stacy, and Le'Veon Bell. And I'm only going to touch on a couple of these as we're getting down. I'm just going to touch on a couple of pluses and minuses in these and why. We'll talk about the top of the tier first. Marshawn Lynch. Pros. He's one of the strongest, hardest running, between the tackles running backs in the league. He led the league in touchdowns last year and was second in carries with 301 last year. Dependable, proven, and the number one option, presently number one option in a run-first offense. That's all you want when you're looking for a running back. The cons, his contractual disputes that happened throughout the summer is showing that he's looking for something more in terms of solidifying being there when they're trying to obviously move him out. They're looking to bring Christian Michael along. I think this is going to be Marshawn's last big year there, if not last year there at all. when they start to phase a running back out, that means phasing out his work. So he becomes a questionable option of reaching 300 carries or even 300 touches if they're really trying to phase him out and work in Christian Michael as what most of us think that will be happening this year. So he becomes somewhat risky, but still, you can have a much riskier pick. If my risk is going to be Marshawn Lynch, I'll take it all day. And I still think he's a number one first rounder rather. Eddie Lacy is the next on there. And to me, there's huge argument to where Eddie Lacy could have and possibly should have been fifth on the list because he was second in touchdowns last year with 11, and he completely changed a paltry Green Bay running attack that has been like historically bad for the last few years until he came along. And they're going to depend on that running game continuously still. This Eddie Lacy thing is just going to get bigger and better. That's the point. James Starks is going to come in and, spell him for some, and he becomes a good handcuff. But Eddie Lacy's going to get the work. He's going to get him. And he's a good pass catcher. So if you had him fifth over Marshawn, it makes a lot of sense to me. So consider that. And if you want safety, it might not be the worst decision to go with Eddie Lacy over Lynch. I just feel like at this point, Lynch is still more proven, and Lynch still has one more at least good year at Seattle to make his name known. Now, I'm just going to talk about two more in this listing here in terms of dark horses. Arian Foster and LeSean McCoy. Arian Foster, between 2010 through 2012, had at least 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns in all of those seasons, including 16 touchdowns in 2010 and 15 in 2012. I mean, to have 2 years, 2010 and 2012, with 15 or more touchdowns, that says everything about him. But them 3 years, 2010 through 2012, put a lot of mileage on him, and it broke him down. He's got back issues, he's got recurring hamstring issues, and they seem to be prevalent and they seem like they're not going anywhere. Though he's generally at this point deemed healthy, he's a risk. But you're taking a risk. He's like a Gronk risk to me. Enough proven to take the risk, but don't take it first round risk. Take it a little late. Take him towards the end of the second round. You can get him there. LeSean McCoy. A little anecdote. He's been a steal that I had been getting in several drafts I've been doing this year, including auction drafts. But it's starting to become apparent to me that maybe not so. Besides the fact that LeGarrette Blount's going to be splitting carries with him more than I thought he was, possibly even a 70-30, 60-40 split, I'm understanding, he's got into knucklehead status with the whole DUI thing. We don't know what that means for this season, may not mean anything for the season, but it's just not a good way to start off the season. No one needs this. This stuff impedes your progress, and it puts you in a doghouse. And when you're in a doghouse with Tomlin, you don't forget it. So I'm low on LeSean McCoy now. He should possibly even come out of that tier, and if he did come out of that tier, it makes a lot of sense. That's why he's the last in the tier, below Stacy, below Giovani Bernard and Montee Ball, which is the last person I'm going to speak on is Montee Ball. Montee Ball is 100% unproven. Montee Ball showed that he can fumble the ball some. And Montee Ball showed that he's got problems with pass protection. This was all that he showed last year. But contrary to that, Knowshon Moreno, a perennially tepid at best and awful at worst running back, showed you what can happen in a Denver Broncos offense. He was one of the most valuable fantasy commodities I think he was in the top 5, if not top 6 running backs last year. And it wasn't because of Knowshon Moreno, it's because of Peyton Manning and John Fox's offense. What that means is it doesn't matter who it is that's in it. If Knowshon Moreno can do it, whoever is there, if he's got adequate talent, can do it. Montee Ball's that guy. Much more talented than Knowshon Moreno, and I believe that he will be everything that Knowshon showed he was and possibly more. If he can hold the ball and if he can show that he can protect. That's the last I'm going to mention in that tier. The next tier, Reggie Bush, Alfred Morris, Andre Ellington, Frank Gore, Rashad Jennings, C.J. Spiller, and Toby Gerhart. The tier started with Reggie Bush, and Reggie Bush is a little higher than he probably should be at this point because I believe him and Joique Bell are going to split the carries and the catches probably pretty much evenly. But I think he's going to get a lot of the third down work for sure. Not necessarily, though, because Joique Bell is also a good pass catcher, but not so much as Reggie Bush is. It's going to be almost a split thing where it's maybe series after series, who knows. But Reggie Bush, in a throw-first offense like the Lions have, he proves to be pretty valuable. He showed you that for years in New Orleans. So he's a pretty good value there, but not more than the guy I really want to illustrate in this tier as value, Andre Ellington. He's going to have everything that Reggie Bush is in terms of third down catch work, being in on third down, and they want him to be the workhorse back on first and second down. This guy, the cons of him is he's very small, and we only have 1 year's evidence of what he can do. But he's a rocket, man. He's lightning. He's really quick, and when you have a 2-to-1 ratio of rushing yards to passing yards, rushing yards and receiving yards, rather, 652, 371, you're almost 2-to-1. That means your potential for that to be raised is exponential. We easily can see a 1,000-yard rushing season out of this guy with 500 plus 600 reception yards and just huge amounts. We're talking about 350, 400 targets total, at least targets. I don't buy into this 250 to 275 carries plus thing necessarily. Again, he's really small, and between the tackles, I don't know if that's going to work for him, if they want to preserve him, but stranger things have happened, and they don't have much else back there to spell him. So look for Andre Ellington to really break loose here, because he provides a lot of the things even the person higher in the tier, Alfred Morris, can't do. Alfred Morris don't catch passes. So he's no longer a sleeper, but you might have to reach on him now, but the value, I believe, will pay off. Which turns into the second person in this tier I want to highlight, Rashad Jennings. A sleeper to some towards the early parts of this draft season, because it wasn't quite clear who was going to be the main dog in the running back core because of David Wilson. But unfortunately, and my heart goes out to David Wilson because he seems to be a good guy and everything. His career was cut short because of recurring injuries, or a neck/spine injury that, we thought he had got over, but it got rung again, in the preseason, and his career is over. Unfortunately for him, like I said, good luck to him in whatever he pursues, but what that does in terms of fantasy is it opens a floodgate for someone else. And it opens a floodgate for a proven productive player like Rashad Jennings. He showed extreme flashes in Jacksonville, and in Oakland he kind of got saddled down, but he's shown that he can do a big solid amount of everything. Good in pass protection, But his improvement needs to come with being in on third down to making catches. He don't have stone hands, but he isn't anything more truly reliable in terms of the catching game. But he's a quality back with good speed between the tackles and on the edge. So, and he's, like I said, his competition is Andre Williams. We'll see how he comes in to spell him, but they want to run the ball there. They need to run the ball there. And Rashad Jennings he holds the ball. He doesn't fumble. So we're looking for him to do a lot of different things, and he could take over a role that really hasn't been fulfilled in quality amounts since the early days of Ahmad Bradshaw, pretty much the Tiki Barber days. They need a good running game in New York, and I think Rashad Jennings is a good example for it. And another guy to keep your eye on here, is Toby Gerhart, another, Jacksonville. Well, he's on Jacksonville now, but another running back who has spent a good portion of his career as a backup, all of his career rather, as a backup behind the best running back in the league, Adrian Peterson. But that can't do anything but help you. And any time that Adrian Peterson was out, and particularly when it was a game or two at a time, Toby Gerhart has shown flashes of being comparable to a good starting running back. So he's worth a, 5th, 6th round selection. It's nothing wrong with that. If you can get him later, good, because he somewhat gets forgotten a little bit. But, I think whenever you're the number one running back in a situation where they want to run and it's no committee decidedly going to be there, you're good to go. His only comp is Jordan Todman, and that's nothing, to be honest. So you want to take advantage of that, which leads to the next tier. And a lot of these are supposedly people that should have the job on lock, but this last tier are from 21 to 30, solid running backs, but all of them pose questions. Ben Tate, Trent Richardson, Ray Rice, Joique Bell, Ryan Matthews, Chris Johnson, Bishop Sankey, Steven Jackson, Shane Vereen, and Danny Woodhead. Starting of the tier, Ben Tate. He came into camp and got traded to Cleveland knowing that he was going to be pretty much the featured back. But if you know Ben Tate, the only thing more injury prone than one Houston Texans running back, which was Arian Foster, was the backup Ben Tate. Always hurt. He's shown great potential. Whenever he had to spell Arian, great potential. But he can't stay on the field. He has issues with it, and already has been injury riddled in this preseason with the Browns. So that opens up a great possibility for a late flyer that I've suggested in other videos, Terrence West. So if you do take Ben Tate, make sure you get, I'm not a big handcuff guy, but I'm definitely a handcuff guy when it's obvious you need to back somebody up that you're putting value in. And if you take Ben Tate, you're going to have to get him around the 6th or 7th round. And so that's an investment. You want to back up the investment with Terrence West, who could come out and even be better if something were to happen to Ben Tate. But to me, the only person more frustrating than Ben Tate is the second person on this list, Trent Richardson. A fine rookie campaign with, ironically, Ben Tate's present team, Cleveland. Great yards, touchdowns. He did enough that made him a perennial tail of the first round pick last year. But anybody who drafted him in the first round with the 9th or the 10th pick was punching themselves and kicking themselves, scratching their eyebrows out and pulling their hair out all season because of him. This dude had less than 600 yards on less than 200 carries in the Colts run in the Colts offense, that when we first heard the trade from Cleveland to Indianapolis last year in the beginning of the season, we thought this is just built for him. He was pathetic. Didn't do anything. He was so bad that he now has us wondering what he'll be worth in just his third year. I tell you what, the thing you're going to find out about Trent Richardson, although he's sliding some in drafts because everybody's just as scared of him as I am, but the thing about him is you're going to learn really quickly what his value is going to be. I think it won't take 3 weeks before you know if this dude is going to be forever benched and doomed there, and they're going to use Ahmad Bradshaw, or if that was just, okay, he really didn't know the playbook and he now knows it. But we're going to be watching that one real closely. I don't own Trent. I'm in a lot of leagues. I don't own Trent Richardson on one of my teams because I'm just not willing to take the risk. I would much rather have the next guy on the list, Ray Rice, than Trent Richardson. Rice has year after year after year after year of proven ability, both within the running game and within the pass-catching game. He's explosive. He's lost some weight so that he can be as explosive as he was years prior, because last year was heavy, and no one really knows what his real reason for last year's down year was. Well, we do know this. He's got every reason to try to get in line this year, because not only is the microscope on him in terms of how he is on the field, we all know what happened in the offseason. And things happen in life, but it's what you do after they happen that makes you determine what you're going to possibly be for the future. He has every reason in the world to put the past behind him and go forward and take over as a good runner as he's shown in years past, just to prove the doubters. And me personally, I think he's going to do it. Those first 2 games that he suspended is not any bit of it doesn't cause any bit of draft hesitance with me. I'm not going to take him super early, but I will take him before I take Ben Tate. I will take him before I take Trent Richardson and pretty much everyone else in this tier. Ron Matthews is questionable, but again, Ray Rice is a feature back. This Bernard Pierce thing, he's not going to cut into it. Once week 3 starts, Ray Rice is good to go. And I really believe he's going to have a resurgence this year. I really, really do. And one of the other guys I want to highlight on this is Bishop Sankey. Rookie running back, not a burner, and adequate talent in terms of a runner. But he's shown what he can do with a big amount of responsibility. He showed it in college. But his preseason hasn't been so great. Shine Green has been doing equal, if not better. And to me, he's not even the best talent in terms of the rookies that's out there. I would rather wait and get Carlos Hyde, knowing that he has a great potential to step into a real notable spot, alongside Frank Gore, than to take Bishop Sankey 5 rounds earlier just because he apparently has a starting job locked up. I'm not sure about him. We'll see how it goes. But again, this is a situation that's sort of like Trent Richardson. I think by week 4, 5, we're going to know who Bishop Sankey is. It's not going to be much question about that. So yeah, draft him at your own risk. But a couple of the other guys in this list, Shane Vereen, right now he's a value. Get him, because there's rumors going around right now that Stephen Ridley may or may not even make the team. because, and you know why, it's because of his inconsistency and fumbling issues. If that were to happen and James White or Brandon Bolden step in to be, the number 2 or the, I doubt it'd be committee, handcuffs to Shane Vereen. Shane Vereen's value goes increasingly higher. And his value already is sky high right now, especially in terms of PPR, because he's basically a receiver that's a running back. So he's a real good value. He's similar to, like I say, with Joique Bell, who's similar to his teammate Reggie Bush. Great guys to have, And the last person I want to illustrate on this tier is Chris Johnson. Love him or hate him. Frustrating as fantasy player as he's been, his record speaks for itself in terms of what he can do. But the last few years, he's been a hard person to own. This New York Jets situation, I really don't believe he's gonna have anything behind him that really steps in his way. Chris Ivory, if he can stay healthy, he's gonna get some of the work, but again, it's open for him to succeed, and they really want to get that running game going, especially with them still trying to mold Geno Smith into somewhat of a pass catcher. A passer, rather. So, yeah, that's my list. Like I said, 1 through 30. I'm going to post the list itself in the content section so you'll know exact numbers I have and the way I see them. I might alter this, too, because as I'm looking at it, I think there's a couple things I want to change, but whatever I put in the contents is going to be the way I see it even after this video. But, yeah, if you got any questions, you can, post them at the bottom of the video. Again, subscribe to the channel. Get your friends to subscribe. People that play fantasy football, get them to subscribe. Like the videos, ask questions, comments. Let me know things that you want to know more of. Follow me on Twitter at FFRealTalk. And anything, you know what I'm saying? We're getting more followers as the time is going, and more questions and more activity. And I'm loving doing this, and I'm hoping you guys are loving what's being, given to you. So until next time, the next video will be the top 30 receivers, and after that, it'll be 2 more videos where I probably do quarterbacks and defense, and then after that, quarterbacks and tight ends, and then after that, it's defense and kickers, if that even matters. But yeah, that's on that note. That'll be it. So we'll see you next time, and good luck with your drafts and with your season this year. All right.